So good morning and welcome to the Accountants Mastermind appraisal of TaxCalc in this case. We have began this conversation as a result of um, numerous conversations that I've had within my community of accountants around a certain piece of software that lots of us use, which we consider to be, what should I say, slightly more expensive and not as good a return on investment as perhaps other softwares out there. So I've had lots of conversations around that. And as a result, Greenstones are currently looking at a way of or looking at changing the software. So um, if you, sorry, let me just go back to my notes. So, the general opinion is when I've gone out to the market, the general opinion is there's two pieces of software out there that's worth looking at, and one of those is TaxCalc. Hence, why we are looking at this morning. But anyway, this is enough from me because I know you're dying to see what Jamie's going to talk about. I've just got a few more things to share. Firstly, I'm not planning a fire alarm this morning, so if the fire alarm goes off, it's nothing to do with me, and you need to leave the building that you're currently in. As I said before, this is being streamed live as well into the Facebook group, the Accountants Mastermind Facebook group. So if you're not a member of that, you can go and join that. The URL to find that is theaccountantsmastermind.com/community. And then I've got various screens going on all over the place where I should be able to ask questions of Jamie live. So I will be sitting here watching it along with you. But if there's any questions or anything that comes up during the course of it, either in the Facebook group or on the Zoom call, then please ask them. And at an appropriate moment, I'll be able to jump in and ask those questions for you. So without further ado, can I pass you over to Jamie to share everything, lots of things that he knows around TaxCalc. So over to you then, Jamie.
Yes, thank you, Simon, and good morning, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. Yeah, good morning to you from a rather crisp and cold Berkshire morning. It's especially cold and a shock to the system for me, so I've just had a couple of weeks in the Mediterranean, so it's a bit of a shock to the system this morning. Apologies if my train of thought is a bit muddled, but yeah, looking forward to showing you and exploring the key points and solves of TaxCalc this morning. So what I'm going to do is just share my screen, and hopefully you can now all see the presentation that I've put together for the webinar this morning. Most of the content will actually be going through the software itself. So just got a couple of slides to introduce what we're about, what we're up to. This really isn't to, I guess, yeah, really kind of point out any flaws in any of the other systems that you might be using, but really just to talk about the merits of our system. So just going to progress through and we'll get into the software. Fantastic. So just to cover the kind of areas that TaxCalc offers, and TaxCalc for a long time has been known as a consumer-based kind of tax product. That's its heritage. Up to 20 or 30 years ago, it was yeah, just a taxpayer product for submitting tax returns under self-assessments, and it's really evolved into a full practice solution. So here are the areas that we cover. So top left, you've got the compliance services like tax accounts production, VAT filing, practice compliance, bottom left. So that's looking at things which help run your practice like AML compliance, GDPR compliance, and company secretarial as well. Top right corner, you've got practice management. We realize that that's really important for the smooth running of work throughout your firm. So we do have practice management tools that sit within the suite to help you complete a lot of that work. And finally, client communications, which is probably the lightest area in the suite at the moment, but really it's looking at e-signature and e-approval. And there are many more functions that are on the way that will help improve that communication with clients too. There's also some other areas like client questionnaires and mail merge facilities that will help with client communications, but that's it for now. So yeah, really, what would we classify as the key solves within this kind of suite? Many of you will obviously be very familiar with compliance software and have probably used it for a number of years. What sets us apart? Well, there's a few things. So firstly, we'd say that the compliance software really saves you time. We really believe that. We hear that as the most common testimonial or feedbacks. We run an NPS or Net Promoter Score survey, and the most frequent comment is easy to use or ease of use, and that really speaks volumes to how the software is thoughtful and logically laid out to save you time. It really does make a difference in day-to-day work. Secondly, top right, you still tied to your server, so the software is cloud-based if you want it to be. The ability to access your TaxCalc application and therefore your client tax returns, your client sets of accounts from anywhere is something that practitioners have been crying out for a long time. So we've delivered that with a system called Cloud Connect. The software sits on, as I say, a central database, and there's different tools available to help you manage the flow of work. Some of that is inclusive and complementary, some of that is paid for based on the level of functionality you need. Many practitioners are surprised at how much is offered free of charge, but if you want the real advanced workflow and logically laying out every step and every stage of the work within your practice, then there's a small charge for that, but I don't think you'll find our charges a problem when we come to that later on. And lastly, just to say, really just to tick a box, the software is fully integrated. So if you are on a fully integrated system where you're expecting expecting information to flow from accounts to tax or from different places, then that's absolutely not a problem. You're going to see the same client record and the same client information shared throughout the system. And really, we just want to recognize that you might be fearful of change. You might be thinking, well, how am I going to transfer my client data? How am I going to find the time to do this? And we can really just speak upon the experiences of the dozens of practices we've moved across in the last couple of years. And I just wanted to speak into some of the ways that we can assist with converting data and implementing you onto TaxCalc. Change is never easy, but we do offer a full implementation service. So we do offer a data conversion. So if you're using an SQL-based desktop compliance software that would include applications such as Iris or Digita, then we can offer an implementation service from those systems. Now, I say usually trial balances can be extracted for ease of import into our accounts production. That is true, but it really depends on whether you're using a cloud-based version of the system. So if you've got a virtualized version of Iris or Digita, then that gets a little bit more tricky. But yeah, most of the time, if it's sat on your server in the office, that's not a problem. And we just leave
Jamie,
you in the dark. So if you do,
can I just ask a question in there, Jamie? Because I know that's one
not
of
at
the
all.
things that
Yeah.
comes up, one of the big conversations that we have around that conversion from what we've currently got, which generally speaking, I think for most people will be uh, a, a local driver on a server, perhaps a terminal server. Uh,
Yep.
how easy is it? I know you're going to say it's very easy, and it's, but how long does it take? Is it an hour's job? Is it a 10 hours job? What sort of things involved?
Sure. There's a timeline that we put together for every customer that's moving across, so you'll be very clear about the expectations of when the data conversion will be started and completed. So effectively, if you decide to move ahead with TaxCalc, we can work with you as to when the best time is to do that, because it might need to fit around perhaps key deadlines that you've got coming up. Thinking of January or April tax returns, we obviously work around that with you. Um, for our own kind of lead time for the service, you're looking up to 10 working days, 10 to 15 working days at the worst times, just because, there's obviously people in the queue, and it's based on when you come on board with the system. So most of that time is just waiting for your job to come up. And when your implementation job is ready, it's really simple from that point. We spend about 45 minutes doing the initial extraction. So that's where one of our team will log into your machine remotely, access your database on your local drive, wherever that is. We'll help you work out where the backups are. And we securely transfer a copy of that database backup. So not raw client data, just the database backup to our own system when we work on the extraction at that point. At that point, you're looking at about 1 to 2 working days for us just to test the data and make sure that it's implementing into the right fields. We do that just to make sure that perhaps an update within the incumbent system hasn't misaligned any of the data conversion routines that we've got. And then we effectively offer a process where the accountant or the practitioner can cleanse or remove any records that they don't want to implement into the database. So as long as that takes for you to do that. You know, you might be happy to implement and bring across all the records, in which case we'll do it straight away. But if you wanted to have a bit of a spring clean, then obviously that might take an additional couple of days. So realistically, you would probably set aside 3 weeks for that whole conversion to take place. And then at that point, you would have at least all your client records in the system ready to go. So not long at all, really.
So is there any
Any other
part
questions
of
around that?
that process? Sorry, Jamie. Is there any part of that process where you wouldn't be able to? So, for example, with Greenstones, we're using Iris. The
Mhm.
1 to 2 days where the data is being converted or cleansed. Are we with Air Iris or any software at that point? Is that complete downtime, or are you working away and we can still use Iris whilst you're doing it?
It's the latter. So you can still carry on working in Iris. You'll even have a copy of TaxCalc working at that point. So you would have started your license. So if it came to it, if you had perhaps a new client walk through the door, you could put them straight into TaxCalc as a new client rather than put them into the previous system. So
So,
you won't be without Iris.
brilliant. So downtime wise, then, um, very low, sort of, well, perhaps 20, 30 to 40 minutes when they extract the data. But other than that, we can carry on.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank
And
you.
it's really just about managing the transition of notice periods and when your iris is expected to turn off or your license expiry date is. So we tend to do it within plenty of time before then.
Excellent. And then just one
Um,
last question on that conversion. We've got 23 years worth of data in Iris. How far back does it go? Does it do the whole of the 23 years, or does it go back 6 years from a tax point of view, or how far back does it go?
sure. So all client records can be extracted. So as long as they exist as an identifiable record in the system, no matter how far back that goes, they can be transferred. We don't discriminate based on how long they've been a client. We can discriminate between whether they're an active client or a non-active client. So if you've been marking your database and archiving clients that are no longer engaged with you, then we can perhaps exclude those if you want us to. Although most people we speak to prefer to have the whole data set moved across, um, just to make sure that nothing's missed.
Yeah,
So we probably recommend that approach. In terms of tax-specific tax return data, I'm afraid just with the nature of data conversion, there's not a lot that comes across, so you wouldn't expect to see any tax-specific fields moved across for any tax year. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the way that Iris or Digita would construct their tax return would just be very different to the way that we do. So in your first year, we would recommend that you are checking things like brought forwards losses and things which would normally automatically appear in your tax return. You will need to cross-reference that with perhaps a PDF copy of your tax return, or Iris and Digita typically remains read-only.
yeah,
What I mean by that is you still have access to it even after the license expires, so you can still cross-reference data. Um, but really, it's probably best to have a conversation individually with each practice about the extent of your data, and really clarify what can and can't be brought across, because it really does depend on the data sets that use the number of custom fields, things like that. But we always work on a reasonable efforts basis, plus going the extra mile for customers to make sure that all the data we can possibly get out is there.
brilliant. So just so summary for me then, perhaps 30 to 40 minutes to extract the data, but other than that, no downtime. And then as much data as possible taken out of Iris into TaxCalc, but there'll be a certain amount of rekeying with regards to, excuse me, some old data. So comparatives for
Correct.
accounts production and things. Excellent, brilliant. Thank you.
The trial balances and accounts production isn't too bad from those systems we've been mentioning explicitly this morning. We can generally, as long as your data is local and on your own server, run a routine which bulk extracts trial balances. So you wouldn't expect to have to click into every client. I think in Iris we've counted it's about 6 or 7 steps or buttons to extract a trial balance. So you wouldn't need to go through that for every single client. We can bulk extract those, put them in your file system, and then when you come to work on that client next within TaxCalc, you can simply import and upload that comparative trial balance into the accounts production via an import map. So it's pretty simple. We just can't automatically transfer the whole trial balance across because we wouldn't know how it maps to our own chart of accounts. But you do a simple upload process and it's simple from there.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions on that?
There's none come in other than those 2 questions that I've already shared, Jamie. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Yeah, we don't leave you in the dark. So there is a dedicated account manager, and our support team are available from the off. So if you do start using TaxCalc from day 0, of course you've got unlimited support to assist. One thing to bear in mind, we already touched on it a little bit about notice period and license expiry dates. Most of the systems we've been talking about do expect a period of notice to leave at the end of the contract, and sometimes that license expiry date can be a little bit obscure because it might be when you did an upgrade or it might be when you added some extra functionality. But do check your contracts if you are in the position of looking to move and switch, then you will need to give at least 90 days notice to make sure that you are able to leave that contract. So it seems a bit harsh and a bit strict, but we've seen people caught out by that. So if you're in the market, if you're looking at switching, or at least perhaps wanting to review your options, it might be an idea just to drop the notice period anyway. At least then you've got the ability to move. I'm sure even if you decided to stay, that that wouldn't be a problem, and I'm sure you'd be able to rescind your notice.
And Mark
So
Stewart
that's all.
just confirmed in the
Yep.
chat that his experience is that they'll hold you to those notice periods as well. So don't imagine that you're going to get out of them.
Sure. That's been our experience as well. I think my PowerPoint just crashed. Hopefully you can still see my screen. The next slide was ironically to move into the software, so let's just go and do that now. Hopefully you can all see that there. So I've just launched into the software. Please comment in the chat if you cannot see that. But what we're going to do in
showing up
terms of
on
the
mine,
demo,
Jamie. So
bro, what we're going to do is launch you through a couple of basic client records, management areas, how you import data from Companies House, and then go through actually using accounts and tax. We've got imports from Xero and QuickBooks. So if you've got clients on those key systems, I'll talk about how you would import that data from those online bookkeeping packages. So that's the final year-end data, and then how to transfer that data from accounts to tax. And then we'll also be looking at some of the practice management features as you go and progress work through the system. You'll want to see how some of that shapes up. Okay, so without further ado, this is the dashboard. What this shows is just some key widgets and key information that you can access at a glance. Just for today, the widgets I've got set up are my engagement status widgets. I've got a nice graph of how many new and active clients I've got. I've got a client counter, and these are all linking through to reports if you need to. You can also select into different dashboards. If you've got like an accounts team and a tax team, you might want to show different information that's pertinent to those areas. The main dashboard may just be showing me all of my tasks and deadlines that are assigned to me, so you've got easy access to things which are on your radar. So we got the option here called Practice Manager. That's kind of the central hub system. So you've got your central client database in here. And so you would see all your client records listed here. Once we've done your client implementation, you would see all the clients listed here. So if you've got 500 clients, 600 clients, 1,000 clients, you'd see as many records listed. There's some useful ways of searching. So if you want to just look for a client name, you've got a nice little search function there. One that's quite useful is if a client calls you up, type their number into the box and they'll actually pop up on screen. So it's a nice way of identifying clients if you've missed their call or if you don't know who's tried to call you. To create a new client record, you've got that option on the left here. So I'm going to create a limited company, and what we can do is interrogate Companies House information to import key data. So it's going to pull in this key information and help you set up the client record. So we've got SIC codes, registered office, but also the directors. So what it will do is search your database. It's found that this could be an existing client. If you don't want to link it to an existing client, if that's not correct, then you can set up a new client or a contact. A contact would perhaps be a director who is part of this company, but not someone you act for personally. I've already set this one up, so let's just see the sync working with the existing company. So everything's ticked through in green there, so everything's synced. This can be run at any time. So if periodically you want to check to see if any of the company's house data has changed, you could run that sync, and anything which doesn't match will appear orange on the left. You can then open the client record and fill in the rest of the client information. So depending on how you engage and set up clients, you may have different processes here. You might be meeting the client face to face. You might be setting them up remotely, but you can go through and enter the rest of the information. Some of the key dates and information is already ported in though from Company's House, like the usual year-end and confirmation statement dates. And these are important because these can be set up as part of the workflows. Great, so you just flick through really, you just carry on and complete the rest of the information. It's pretty easy. And the relationships there, so they've automatically come in. So we really recommend that Company's House integration because, or talk about it because, all that information will then sync across between the directors and the limited company. Okay, so a couple of next steps can come up on that. You may want to create a 64.8 for that client if they're a brand new client. So you can open them in this HMRC Forms module, and a 64.8 is created. We just kind of set this up as a logical next step. This form can actually be submitted online. So if you've done the 64.8 process online before, it's relatively easy. You submit the form, then the client gets an activation code in the post, which then they need to give that back to you to complete the activation. So it's nice that that's built into the software and ready to go. They can also be e-signed if required as well. And if you wanted to, you can create. Yes.
Sorry, is there a facility to have on the site an in-depth demo and pay for the demonstration on the site? If Andy, I'm not. Oh, I see what you mean. Sorry, is Jamie? Is there an opportunity for you to go out to an accountancy practice and do the demonstration at the practice on their premises?
There is. Typically, we're not a field-based sales team. That's one of the ways that we've just grown organically as the business is just out of our central office. So we don't have a team of people running up and down the UK to do that function. But yes, if that's required, if that's the way that you'd prefer, we're happy to look into it. But we'd probably start with a web demo just to make sure that you're covering off all of the key points first. And we feel like we can really tailor it to that practice even remotely. But yeah, that's not a problem. If you want to ping us some details after the webinar, we'll happily set something up.
Yeah. So at the end, Andy, there'll be an email address that will get shared, so you'll be able to go through that process. Brilliant. Thank you. Sorry, Jamie. Carry on.
And just to major on that point, I mean that is one of the ways I suppose we can pass savings on to our customers. We don't have a team of people running around the UK, company cars and everything to pay for. So it's one of the ways we've grown organically as a business, and we pass a lot of those savings on to customers. So you can have a look at pricing online at any point. So just go to the website. All of our pricing is transparently listed there.
Okay, Jamie, now just another question. Can you just run over that 64-8 thing again, just because somebody just missed that point and they think it might be important for them?
Not a problem. So a couple of ways to get into that. Probably the most logical one is right-click the client, open in HMRC Forms. You can create a new form. There's a bunch of forms there, but I'm just going to major on the 64.8. You open it. It's pre-populated with the client data at that point. I think you just select the director who's signing that. And then you file online. So you've got two options. You can print and get the client to sign it manually, and then you've got to submit it by post. but you can also file online. So you submit the form, and then the client gets an activation code in the post. So it's a bit like doing it directly through the HMRC website. It's the same facility. And then once the client's got that activation code back to you, you activate it through here. That's been in the software for a number of years, actually. So it's nothing new, but we like to show it because we know that it's just an easy, obvious next step when you're creating a new client in the database.
Thank you, Jamie.
Does that cover it? Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
You could also at this point create an engagement letter. So if you wanted to click send letter here, you've then got a bunch of letters. Some of them we ship with the software, so all of these ones are complimentary. You could create your own ones. For example, I've created some payment on account July date reminders as an example. But yeah, if you wanted to create like your terms of service or terms of business, then you can just launch that there and send it to the client. One thing we're working on is the e-signing of that. So unfortunately, at the moment, the e-sign facilities is mainly just on the tax returns and the accounts. But yes, soon enough, you'll be able to e-sign these documents. So that's in the pipelines, just to say. Because we know that that's one thing you need to get your clients to sign. So that's just opened up in Word there. So all these templates we used are Microsoft Word templates, so they can really be customized and formatted to the way you want. Okay, hope that's clear. What we're going to do next is open a client and go through the accounts production process. So you click into the year, you get multiple years populating on that screen. So if you need to go back and do some comparatives, you just click into the previous year. You can always see which year you're working on based in the top right corner. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but the time module flashed up there to basically say, well, you're now in a piece of work that's billable. So if you do have a requirement for time recording and getting your staff to create timesheets, then that's a relatively new but available function within the suite. So you then start recording the time there. So we'll then go through and progress through the accounts production. So all the key information pulls across, so the database is centralized and all the directors' relationships and information pulls across based on that central database. So nothing you need to set up when you actually get to the accounts bit itself. Now, one thing to check is around the accounting standards that you prepare and set up for your clients. We don't do everything, but we do the core trading businesses up to 10 million turnover. So you're looking at FRS 102 Section 1A. We think that covers something like 97% of businesses in the UK. So we cater for that at the moment. So SMEs, micro entities, and all the way up to the small 10.2 million. So just look out for any clients that might fall outside of those reporting standards. We are working on adding FRS 102 full. There's no timescales on when that will be available, but it's our intention to develop that eventually. For any questions, let me know. We can do that now at the end.
Hi, Jamie. I've got a question from Edward. Can you just confirm when you think the e-sign for the engagement letters will be available, please?
Not sure entirely. It does require some third-party work, so we use a company called Signable for our e-sign approval system. They've been working on some facilities to e-sign any document, not just engagement letters, which required some updates to their security because we weren't happy with the way that they were password protecting documents. So they're working on that, and well, it's hard to say when that will be released. There is a release going out later this month / beginning of December. It might make it to that one, but then with the impending busy period, December and January, we don't tend to do any releases. So it might not be till February, March, depending on which release it gets scheduled in, but we're pretty close.
Excellent. Thank you, Jamie.
And it's important to note at this point that we don't have perhaps any specialized like accounts, like group accounts, consolidations within accounts production. So again, perhaps that might affect one or two clients. We're very open and transparent about what we don't do, but you might need to check just to make sure that you've got clients that fit within the accounting standards that we offer. Same would be for charity formats or kind of clubs, associations. So you do need to check what your clients standards are across your client base. We tend to find that for, again, 95, 97, 98% of most small practitioners out there, we're going to cover all the formats, and often there are slightly more manual workarounds that you can do for those odd one or two clients. So speak to us individually if you've got any kind of specifications or requirements on that, and we're happy to explain thoroughly what we can do. You would just tick through and set up a few other bits like comprehensive income statements if required, and some other advanced settings there. The main screen you would come to is posting. This is where you would either import or type in a trial balance. So this client's set up on Xero. I can see that because I imported this trial balance from Xero. You can see the import date there. I'll just show you how we do that process. You just click into here. We've got these integrations at the moment, so Free Agent, QuickBooks Online, and Xero. And then once you click next step, the next screen will be familiar to you. It's just the Xero login, so you'll log in with your agent details for Xero and access the client information there. As I say, I've already done this one, so I won't take you through the process. However, Xero's mapping to ours is really nice. It's automatic. We've got the kind of key accounts mapped across. So like I think 200 is sales in Xero. That's automatically mapped to our own sales codes, and the full chart of accounts in Xero is mapped across. So you might need to just look out for any bespoke fields you've created there. But other than that, it will come across. So here's the very basic trial balance we've imported, but that came across without any mapping required. And then, if you've got perhaps a fuller trial balance, that I've just entered this one to pad out the data, because Xero's demo company doesn't have a lot of data in it. But there you go. You've got the full list there. A couple of nice features that even our own customers don't perhaps know about. So if there are any existing customers on this, because I know there are a couple, yes, you can do this feature. So you can import the trial balance from last year. So you've got companies that have very similar transactions year to year. You can import last year's trial balance either with or without last year's values, and then just fill in the blanks. So that's quite useful for perhaps contractors, where it's very simple income and expenses. So that's quite a useful feature that's perhaps unknown. You can bring forward opening balances, and there's other features on here like bring forward accruals, prepayments. If there's two-way integration, so we do have two-way integration with just QuickBooks Online at the moment. You can export journals here back to that system. So we're working on that with Xero at the moment. So hopefully in time, unfortunately no timescale, as I say at the moment, but within the next few months, we'll have the facility to create a journal like this corporation tax journal and export that back to Xero. That might be useful for raising your accountancy fee, putting that straight into Xero in for that client, and then obviously you can create a bill for that client on that basis. Just seen a question flash up actually from Abu. What about sole trader and LLP? Yes, that's both covered. So sole trader accounts, you've got full accounts or income and expenditure accounts, and LLPs are covered as well. And partnership accounts for the avoidance of doubts. If they're not a limited liability partnership, but a standard partnership, that's fine too. Okay, what I'm going to do is launch into the reports. And I suppose this is one of the key nice features in TaxCalc. You've got the ability to
Jamie, just while that opens up, Mark's asking a question about what do people do around charities. So what do they, if we can't do charities through TaxCalc, what's the solution in your eyes?
There's a couple of things we found just based on our own research and based on feedback from customers who've switched who have had charities. I think it depends really on what the structure of the charity is. There's many different types and formats and requirements, even to the level of the amount of income or structure of the charity itself. So you do need to do a bit of research, but there are templates from the Charities Commission which you can fill in to create accounts. Or there are services where you can effectively take a standard template, and if it's an incorporated charity, if it requires an IXBRL submission to Companies House, there are services out there where just for a one-off you can effectively submit a set of accounts you've created, and that will be tagged in that XBRL format for submission to Companies House. So perhaps a little bit more manual. The feedback we've had, and this has been testimonial based, is that the time savings for the majority of clients have well outweighed the odd one or two where they've perhaps had to implement a slight manual process. Okay, back in the financial statements, really just to say there's an interactive or edit mode. So we've seen in a lot of systems there's a lot of backwards and forwards between preparing and editing the notes, producing the financial statements. So just to show you've got a really nice facility to edit note text here, that will just regenerate on the fly and shows which sections you can easily adapt and edit, just like that. And then from within this screen, you can also launch into the specific notes for that section. So if you wanted to click the little icon to the left, then it takes you to the full note library. This gives you a really nice view of which notes are applying in the accounts, which ones are turned off, the grey ones are off. And if there's anything you've missed, you can go in and search for it, turn it on or off. And there's a couple of nice features here to help you make sure you've ticked everything off and you've not missed anything. So you can show what's required by law and what's turned off. So that could be a nice cursory check just to make sure that none of these options are required for this particular company. Of course, there's a lot to explore, but really the main thing to get across is that a very nice looking and compliant set of accounts can be created and edited and formatted to quite an extent through this system before submission to the client and Companies House. It's not like a pro forma system where you're just filling in boxes. There is a full report engine in here, so you kind of get the best of both worlds. It's a very quick and easy system which is pulling in data from the database to create the set of accounts, but it's not it's not just filling in like a pro forma template, and it's very restrictive on its layout. Now you might be thinking about, well, how do we get this ready for online submission for XBRL? Well, the good news is there's no process to do for that. So XBRL is completely baked into the background. So there's no kind of black box kind of additional step you need to go through to get that completed. So as long as you're happy with the presentation of the accounts through here, you can check the registrar financial statements as well. Then effectively, all you do is just go check and finish, resolve your errors. So I've got quite a few errors here, and you would file to Companies House, and that would literally be all you'd need to do because all the XBRL tagging is automatic. Just to highlight a couple of these errors, yeah, they're obviously very useful. They pick up things like signatures missing, but also things like what's the phrase I'm looking for? Misaligned brought forwards, and also depreciation policies. So if you've posted to a particular asset class, fixed asset class, but not entered a depreciation policy, it's going to catch out things like that. Okay, any other questions on accounts production before I move across?
No, there's none there at the moment, Jamie. Thank you.
Thank you. So from this little cog icon, we can fulfill a few actions. One of them might be to update the work for that client. So if you've got a job set up for that annual accounts, what you can do is update that because you've been working on that. Now this will break down all the steps of that particular job. So this is where we get into the workflow aspect of the system. And this template of the workflow will be set up automatically. So there'll be automatic assignees based on each job stage and a due date assigned to each one. That due date can be fixed in time, or it can be based on the completion of the previous task or sequence within the job. So really what we're showing you here is a list of tasks that make up that job. And in this case, what I've been working on is prepare accounts, and it's already done, but what I'm going to do is just make sure that that's ticked to completed. I can log some time, add some expenses, and go through that process there. Now, really what you need to do is spend a bit of time setting up those workflows. They, of course, well, the software ships with some template examples, but if you really want to get the most out of the system, then it's worth going through and really highlighting and identifying what your processes are. So you do that within the settings of the program. You go into the job template section within Practice Manager, and you just make sure that every step of your job templates are accurately recorded so that when they're applied to each client, they're set up correctly. We can come on to the practice management in a little bit more detail later on, but I was just showing you how you would update the job task at that point.
Yes, I think
I'm
one
going
of
to
the
click
things
off
for
the.
me, Jamie, just while I've got you on that, one of the things is the difference between accountancy manager or the practice manager and the practice manager pro, which I saw on the website. So we do a lot of practice management stuff in Iris. That's fundamentally the main challenge that we've got as a practice, because without that we can't work, because it's all controlled on individual control panels
Yep.
and whatnot. So I think that might be important. And then there's a question on the chat around if somebody's using Center, can you disable the workflow aspect of TaxCalc?
You can, absolutely. So the workflow elements are only available within that Practice Management Plus. So as standard, it comes with the central database, which we call Practice Manager, and it has a very basic task system, but they wouldn't automatically be set up. So your tasks wouldn't automatically be created. So if you wanted to use a third-party application to manage workflow, then you would effectively stick with the Practice Manager, don't pay for the workflow elements, and don't set up any tasks basically. Now, so yeah, there's no problem with that.
Brilliant, excellent. Thank you, Jamie.
I suppose what we've been doing is responding to feedback from our own customers and prospects alike, really, where they've been using something like Iris, which has had a lot of practice management functionality embedded in it for a number of years. And so that's why we've been developing these additional tools to help with that, because of course having it within the system where you're completing the work makes sense and make sure that it's all up to date and integrated. Okay, so we'll move across to tax. Just wanted to highlight some of the integrations between the two. So this is tax. It opens in a new tab, so it's really easy to do multitasking within the system. So if a client calls you up, wants to check some information on a tax return, whilst you're in another job, that's really simple. You can just open a new tab and open that company client. Just to show you, what we'll do is refresh the data from accounts into tax. It's just a very simple refresh there. And we do a refresh just to make sure that the periods are correct, and that's how we handle short or long CT periods and the apportionment of figures there. So there's a whole process, very quick and easy, to make sure that the CT period matches the accounts and things are apportioned at that point. Okay, so we'll carry on through. And the main screen you'll come to, which is this trade and professional income section. This is where you would go in, adjust your taxable profit by amending the disallowables and other adjustments here, including capital allowances. There's a full wizard for that. We've got a team of experts in the business who keep this whole tax section up to date. So you'll see that it features the latest annual investment allowances and everything like that. And typically, the feedback we get is that these areas can be weak in other systems, perhaps implemented with bugs and just a little bit illogical. So we do get a lot of good feedback on these kind of sections within TaxCalc. And really, tax is in the name, so it's really what we have developed over a number of years, and is certainly probably our strongest area. It covers all the supplementary pages, including loans to participators and other bits. So it really covers anything that can be submitted online via a CT600. If there are any specific questions on tax, let me know, but really what I was going to come to at this point is just show you how you would complete the process. A couple of nice features here. You can file online, that's obvious. You can print, get a copy set up for client's signature and approval. You can also post the tax journal back to accounts. So if you've created your tax liability up here, that's a live running calculation, so you can edit that as you progress. Just click this box here, and this will post it back to your accounts. So it just completes the loop, really. So really nice. And of course, if you've got the two-way integration with QuickBooks, that corporation tax journal can then be submitted back to the bookkeeping system. Okay, you can add to an e-sign envelope. So the e-sign facility will allow you to effectively pull together all of the documents for that client and get instant e-approval. It's a really nice system using a company called Signable. I won't touch on it too much, but basically just to say you add all your documents to your envelope. And effectively drop in where they need to sign and then send it through there. What the client then gets is an automatic email with an invitation to access the documents. The documents are stored in a effectively online portal. So nothing is actually sent via email, so it's GDPR compliant. They access the document and press the button to sign it. It works similar to DocuSign if you've used that before. The nice feature then is the ability to see instantly when the signing process is complete. So you'll see a notification in the top right corner once the signing phase is complete, and you'll see it updated. The status is updated on the e-sign center screen here. From that, you can then go in and obviously complete the work site, file online and print the final copy. Now, we've also got an integration with a company called SmartVault. So e-sign is just for an instant e-approval, but if you wanted long-term document storage, just wanted to touch on the relationship we have with a company called SmartVault, who offer a document management solution. So that already has some light integration with TaxCalc, but if you're interested in this, have a look at the information on the website and how SmartVault works. It's built specifically for accountants. It works really well. It's cloud-based and obviously keeps the documents long-term in a central place and makes sure that your clients can access those documents long-term without needing to contact you. So do have a look at that online if that's something you're in the market for.
Jeremy, I've just got a couple of questions. One, on the portal and Signable, and does the client need to register for those?
No, it works like so there's two sections here. So there's for the e-sign facility through Signable, there's no portal set up, so there's no registration or invitation step required. Effectively, it's based on the email address and an authorization token that's sent by the software. So once the documents have been created, they'll be sent to the client, and the client can access those by that authorization token in the link of the email. So they access the documents there, and then effectively you've got the ability to sign the documents there and then. If you're using the SmartVault facility, which also does have a facility for sending documents to clients, that is a client portal facility. So if you want to upload the document to SmartVault, you would create the print preview, and then that will be stored in the client's folder. By uploading it to the client's folder, the client will automatically get an email to say that the document's been uploaded. And to access that, they will need to log in because it's a portal system, so they will already have an email and password to access that.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. And then another question: can we extract the data out of the Practice Manager software? So if we wanted to extract, say, a list of clients and addresses, can we do that?
Yeah, there's multiple ways. So if it's purely client contact information you're interested in, I would do that through what we call the report manager, and we already have a predefined report actually called all clients contact information. So you just run that, and that's got some key information on it there. So I hope that is what you're looking for, but
Yes.
of course you can customize that report.
So can you extract that as a CSV or something like that if you wanted to upload it to something else? Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, you can.
Excellent. Can Accountancy Manager integrate with TaxCalc?
Obviously, that's a very broad question because there's many different touch points, but the short answer is no. Basically, the Accountancy Manager is obviously a separate system to TaxCalc. So,
okay. So there's something specific there, Abu, that you want to that you want to achieve, then you'll have to follow that up directly, I think, please. And then the last one at the moment is, can Smart Vault be used for all of our client documents or just the documents that come out of TaxCalc?
No, all client documents, so it's a standalone document management system. So it can be used for all client documents and internal documents for the practice. So policies, MTD procedures, things like that, engagement letters, everything can be stored centrally. You would set up folder template structures, which means that perhaps you would have specific folders within clients that clients automatically have access and read access to. And then you'd have some folders which would just be accessible by the firm, but still are listed under the client. So the client wouldn't be able to see any of those documents, but you would have all their engagement letters and, working papers and everything like that stored centrally.
Brilliant, thank you. And then the last one, I've got another vote for accountancy manager or some sort of integration with an accountancy manager. So it might be worth us having a separate conversation about what that integration is, because my knowledge of accountancy manager is, well, almost non-existent. So
Sure.
perhaps the people that Abu and Sarah will perhaps sort of arrange that if we can separately. And then Andy, your question, I've just seen your question about the data mining facility. So we use data mining, Jamie, quite often. But so, for example, if we wanted to search all customers that's got a 50th birthday in 2020, so if they've got a special birthday coming up, we'll send them a special birthday card. Is there a facility within Practice Manager to extract specific data like that, like there is within ARIS?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that specific example. I've not tried that one before, but it's a nice touch. But yeah, there is data mining here. So this is on the main client manager screen. So if you just go into this button here, and then you would add conditions, it's quite easy to use. One that comes up often is perhaps show me all self-employed clients above or below the VAT threshold. So you can do something like that. But yeah, there's so many fields in there you can search. I wouldn't say it's the whole data set. It's 95%. So,
Yeah, that just purely looking at that looks similar to very similar to what we do when we go into ARIS data mining. And that's not 100% of that data either. But yeah, so it looks like it's there. Okay, and then Edward, can Smart Vault docs be viewed from TaxCalc as it looks up all documents relating to the client without leaving TaxCalc? So can you see the documents in Smart Vault, or will you be able to see the documents in Smart Vault without leaving TaxCalc?
Yes, and that's because Smart Vault offers a document view for the desktop. So I think this only works for Windows. So if you're a Mac user, all the documents are cloud-based, but there is like a desktop view into the documents. There's no tight integration with that at the moment, but it would be very easy for us to double-click on a client record and have a button in here which displays all your client records in Smart Vault. In the meantime, it would be pretty easy. I wonder if I've got access to it on my screen. So I think I might need to log into it. But I'm just going to log into my Smart Vault connected desktop, and it will show you the view that I'm talking about. Let's see if that works or not. Great, so it looks like this. So again, it's this kind of the same list of clients that you can just access here. And yeah, there's a couple of nice features in it. So if you're printing your document here, and you select Smart Vault as your destination for this document, you've effectively got the ability to quickly select which client folder it's going to go into. So there's like an auto filer. So you just go into the connected desktop, and it will effectively open up which client and which folder you can access that to. So you select a client, select a folder, and you'll see that it's actually updating dialog here. And then you'll see that that file is now uploaded into that particular area. So SmartVault themselves actually have a full sales service. So we're not the experts on it. Obviously, we've been given a run through. It's a product that we resell on their behalf. But if you want a full demo of its capabilities, then do speak to them. I can give you an email address, perhaps at the end in the chat box. But there's a contact at SmartVault that we'd be delighted to put you in touch with if you're interested in that facility. Again, it's just something that we've identified as an area that practitioners want. It's another gap to fill, so we've kind of worked with SmartVault to produce this solution for our customers.
Brilliant, excellent. Thank you,
How are we
Jamie.
doing for time, Simon?
We got, well, I did say 10 past 11. So I think what we'll do is if there's any other questions, if you throw them into the chat box or the Q&A, and then, so if you finish the demonstration and then we'll answer the questions, perhaps me and you'll do a video afterwards or something in order to answer those questions, and then again, share it with the group. So if anybody's got any appointments or whatever coming up at sort of 10 past or quarter past, then they get to see the product as opposed to hear the answers to other people's questions, if that's okay.
Absolutely. It's not much more to cover in terms of compliance. Obviously, we'd recommend that you play around with that for yourself, make sure that it covers everything you need. There is a 14-day free trial. We feel so confident you'll be up and running and be able to use the system immediately that we offer it on a trial basis for 14 days. Yeah, it's not complicated. You just download it and you're ready to go and put some example clients in for it to have a play. A couple of other features that might be worth mentioning. There's a full AML compliance kind of center or area, both for your firm's compliance, registering who your money laundering officers are, and recording things like any data breaches or subject access requests, or yeah, just performing your own risk assessments for your own firm's AML compliance, and also listing policies and procedures. And also completing risk assessments for each of your clients. So you've got the client due diligence, which will allow you to do those risk assessments on each client. That will include the additional option of performing an ID check. So if you wanted to perform an identity check, perhaps on a client that you're not meeting face to face, there is that facility as well. It's kind of a paid per search facility with a company called Equifax, so that's an additional option. VAT filing, we did develop a bridging tool, so if you're still submitting anything from Excel to complete the VAT return, there is a bridging tool here developed within the software, although I imagine most of you will be using Xero or QuickBooks for that, so that's no problem. Some basic company secretarial features, again, that's something we're looking to work on. So we've got a company formation tool, and again, we get a pretty good price for that. So I think it's just £10 per incorporation through us, so much cheaper than using a bureau or using a formation agent that can cost quite a lot. And company's house forms, you've got the ability to submit confirmation statements and many other update forms. There's many triggers within the software as well. So if you update information within the client record, like director's information, director's name, address, things like that, it's going to automatically trigger to complete a form. So it will actually remind you. And yeah, really just to finish, we'll just touch on perhaps some of the additional functionality that some of you will be looking for in terms of practice management. So two areas here to look at. So one is the time facility. So we've been logging a bit of time as we've been going through today, but really just to show you there is a full module here on capturing time logs and creating a review process. So there's a facility with teams within the system. So if you've got an approval process for timesheets from junior staff members up to a tax manager within that department, then you can set that up and you can see all the timesheets that have been recorded, and you can open one up. And here's what time logs look like. So if you have created your own time log and you want to edit something, if you're not quite sure or you're not quite happy with where that's been logged, then you can move that around to change the time or add a time log through here, including a multiple entry mode. So if you're the kind of person who likes to get to the end of the day and log their time in arrears, then you can do that there. Otherwise, you can use the time stopwatch up there and it will automatically log it for you. And then again, you've got that approval process through here. Again, it's probably worth having a look at that in detail. So if time recording is of importance to you, then we'll be happy to have a conversation with you on how that works individually. Finally, in terms of managing work for clients, what you can do is double click into a client record, and you've got this screen here called active work. And what this will show you are all the jobs that you've got open for that client and any individual tasks. So these tasks are set up, they're effectively just reminders to do things like the company secretarial confirmation statement. I haven't set up multiple job stages within that. You could if you wanted to, but because that's a relatively simple task, I've just set that up as a task. Annual accounts and tax returns are set up as jobs, so they've got individual stages. So when you click into this, you can see those individual stages. And you'll see how that's automatically set up to assign to relevant people within the business to do that. Now, these jobs don't have to be created individually. They're applied to clients automatically based on them having a certain service. So if you tick the facility within the engagement section here for services rendered, you'll see that it automatically applies the default workflow for that particular client. So it's not a case of having to go in and set those workflows up for each and every client. It will be present based on the fact that you've ticked that client has that service.
So just on that, Jamie, just because this is so we measure the turnaround times, and one of the ways we do that is obviously a completion date. So when you mark that job stage complete, does it actually record a time as well, or a date?
Yeah, like a timestamp of when that was completed. Yeah, it does. There's a full audit trail and history of each job. I don't know if this is a good example. It shows that there, so the status has changed at each of these intervals.
Aha, brilliant. Okay, to the minute. Brilliant. Thank you.
And I think this is the main screen that people want to work on, and what we've really focused on here is making sure that there's clear visibility of your practice's ideal due date for that job and the actual statutory deadline. We tend to find that they're different, so a practice will have an ideal deadline date, perhaps 3 months before the actual due date, to make sure that there's no last minute rushes. So for example, you can see how this annual accounts for this limited company, our practice ideal due date is the 1st of April, to give us a good 3 months to get that completed by the 30th of June. So I think this is the main screen that practices work on, and there's a full filter system to identify work that's coming up just in the next 7 days, or created between, or just for certain types of jobs, or belonging to certain employees. So there's a full breakdown there, and again, all of these screens can be exported. So if you wanted to run off reports on the job deadlines coming up and have those perhaps stuck on a wall or something, or in an Excel spreadsheet, you can have that available there too. Now that really is probably all we could cover off today. Just in the initial explore, as I said, the invitation is there to do something tailored and individual to you. So if that's something you'd like to take us up on, then please don't hesitate to email us on that sales@taxcalc.com box, and we'll be happy to get in touch to go through a web demo at that point. I see a few questions coming in. Should we move to questions, Simon?
Yeah, it's a good idea. If you just answer those, we've got obviously. You can see the Sarah, the Chris, and the Simon ones.
Yeah.
I've also got one from Andy Page around whether you can use the software, whether there's any issues with an office in India using the software.
No, not at all. I don't know if that question is regarding specifically the cloud aspect, whether there's any restrictions on that. No, there's not. We've got a few outsourcing firms using the software, so perhaps they have a back office in India. So some front office control in the UK, and client setup in the UK, but then back office work in India. And if you're using the cloud version, it's all stored in our systems. You can access that from anywhere.
And then Simon's asked, where does the engagement letters, where are they sourced from? Are they ACCA or ICAW? Where are they stuff that you've generated?
And we source them from the CCAB, so it's not a specific professional body. don't know if you can still see my screen, but they're generic, but they cover the key. I think the key major ones. I think the power of the mail merge facility though is just put your own templates in there, and they'll be available for future use. So if you've got your own templates you like to use, then just enter them into the system and they can be used.
Brilliant, thank you. And then does it integrate with any other document management system? So for example, we use Virtual Cabinet. Will it integrate with Virtual Cabinet, or do you have to use the cloud storage one, whatever it was called?
Yeah, unfortunately not. It's only a specific arrangement we've got with SmartVault. So there's nothing with Virtual Cabinet, for example. Although interestingly, they're both owned by the same company. So SmartVault is a sister product to Virtual Cabinet, and owned by the same group called Get Busy. So there is, I believe, some sort of migration process they can offer if you're interested in moving from the desktop Virtual Cabinet to cloud SmartVault. So speak to them if that's something you're interested in.
Okay, because that again is a reason from an Iris perspective, because it's desk bound as opposed to cloud bound. Another in fact is one of two reasons why we currently have a server or use a server, and Virtual Cabinet is the second one. So that might be an interesting thing for us to explore as well. And then Sarah and Mark. So the email address is sales@taxcalc.com. And then that will work its magic in your system, Jamie. That's correct.
Yeah, we would just appreciate your postcode, and we can assign your query to your dedicated account manager. We've got a team of people in the office who look after different regions, so you can address it to me. That's no problem. I can answer if I know the answer straight away. But if you've got perhaps a longer term query and you're serious about exploring the system, then we'll set you up with a dedicated person who can show you the ropes and take you through the system from there.
And then the question from Sarah around wanting to delve deeper into the AML aspect of it, or the self-assessment tax returns aspect of it. What's the best way to do that, Jamie? Is there some recorded demos or webinars that people could look at, or would you rather spend the time and help them on their specific issues? Some people don't like taking up too much of your time, but I would imagine that you're more than happy to help people make an informed choice as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely, and we appreciate that. We've got a lot of video content online, so if Sarah, if you're happy to provide us with your email address, we won't go through the hard sell. We won't take you through all the detail, but we can link you to some in-depth training videos on each section, including the AML center or any specific queries on certain sections within the system. So there's this whole video training channel which is free and available to anyone, but also the website's got a lot of content on it as well. So if you specifically went to the AML section, you'll see a bunch of videos on here that take you through it step by step. So do have a look on there.
Excellent.
And your second question, just seeing about pricing. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, it's all online, so just have a look. You can build your bundle from there effectively. So just to give you an example, if you need unlimited clients for tax, which is where we find most people sit, you can be looking about those figures there. You can add additional users, and you just add it to the basket and construct your order. So tax, you go into accounts production and have a play to build the package that you need.
Excellent. And Sarah just shared her email address, so we follow that up, Jamie, afterwards, if we can, please.
Just making a note. Yeah.
The last question for this session: how different is the cloud and desktop versions? Are they similar? Are they completely different? How does that work?
Completely the same. We only have one code base. So whether you're desktop or cloud, it's exactly the same. All we're doing is changing where the actual database is sat. So if you're on a local desktop version, you would see this interface and your database would be stored locally on your C drive or on your server. If cloud-based, you would go into the About section, you would see that your database location is in the cloud, and we look after that for you. There is a small fee for the hosting, but it's nominal. I think it's £26 per month for a large number of users, so it's not it doesn't cost the earth.
That's Brilliant, Jamie. Thank you. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much, Jamie, for sharing the software. I've got some questions as well, specific to the way we work, and no doubt lots of other people have. But it's certainly worth, from our perspective, exploring that further. So thank you very much for that. And that email address again is sales@taxcalc.com. That has also been, the video and the webinar has also been live streamed into the Facebook group. So if you go onto Facebook and search for UK Accountants Inspiring, Challenging and Supporting Each Other, or type in the URL www.theaccountantsmastermind.com/community, you'll be able to go to that group, and no doubt over the weekend people will be asking questions, sharing ideas within that group. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much to everybody that's come along. I've really enjoyed the collaborative aspect of the webinar and challenging the presenter, because it's helped me get different people's perspectives and different people's opinions on how that should work. So thank you very much for joining us, and I look forward to the conversation continuing in the Facebook group. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time. Thanks, Simon.